Welcome to a Curious Yogi Podcast. I'm your host, Bobbi, joined by living masters and awakening friends. We're here to illuminate your practice as we explore what it means to walk the yogi's path, to unfold peace from within, and to live the vision of oneness. I'm so delighted you're here. Now let's get curious. Tech done. So I'm here with my new mic, trying to do videos. So this is all very new and uncomfortable, but I really want to start to level up this podcast because it means so much to me. And here we are, the last episode of season 3. I think it's like 75 episodes now, approximately. Which has been amazing. Such a fun and wonderful project to do that I know has added so much value to my own sadhana, my own life, and I know to so many of the listeners who have emailed, who have left reviews, who have joined the Patreon. So thank you so much. It was so fun going back and revisiting all the episodes from Season 3 to pull out some of the favorites, some of the key teachings, some of the highlight moments. And so many themes or points were repeated over and over and over, from the most esoteric and spiritual knowledge to the practical application of yoga and oneness in real life, in relationships, in global politics. Like, we touched so much in this last season, and yet there was a thread. There is always a thread from the deeply personal healing of addiction and managing mental health to the patience required to live a truly spiritual life. Back in season 2, Sundaram said something that I love to remember, especially when I have these conversations. He said, and I'm not sure if he heard it from Swamiji or he had picked it somewhere else, but he said, it's one knowledge spoken through many mouths and heard through many ears. So I totally believe that. I totally feel that in sharing this podcast. And as it always is, the themes that have unfolded in the podcast have also unfolded within my own sadhana in the past 10 months. And I guess it's because of the kind of questions that it prompted within my own life. So then I'm bringing those questions to the conversations. But I just feel, if we go back as far as Arjuna and Krishna, the sort of human predicament for time memorial is that sense of confusion, that sense of contractedness that we feel, or that sense of conflictedness of holding these two truths at once. I am a human being with my dharma, with my purpose, with all these things ahead of me that I have to seemingly do. And yet, this inner awareness of my true nature, of me as something unaffected by anything on the relative field, including my attachment to this body and to clinging to life. So I hope my need for repetition and hearing that truth again and again has given you something to turn on also. And before we dive into some of these amazing highlights and sound bites, I'm also doing this on video, which is kind of new and uncomfortable, but I wanted to give, before we jump into that, I wanted to give such a heartfelt shout out to the Patreon members who have not only been supporting the show, but also joining the monthly satsang. We've been a small, regular, consistent group, and we've discussed these reoccurring themes in great length because it's obviously all relative, but when you're a real jigyasu, a real seeker, you don't tire of being curious. And these themes, somehow, they're continually inspiring. And we talked so much in the last year on sadhana, on the guru and the devtas we're devoted to, the importance of the practice, the sangha or community, our sovereignty, our autonomy. and where we get caught up in the laundry and forget the ecstasy, quote unquote, the real yoga. We also shared a lot about neti neti and the mantra Amaram Ham Madaram Ham in our satsang. We meditated on that. We spent a lot of time listening to this teachings of Swamiji, my teacher, and it's just been such a beautiful way to connect with people that are into this podcast. And I wanted to share one beautiful reflection that one of the Patreon members, Trevor, shared with the group just last week. And I felt that it so clearly expresses our sadhana and what also has dawned in this last season. I hope he doesn't mind that I share it with you. And this is what he said. He said he sort of, this came up for him when he was walking, I think he said, in nature, and just something he was contemplating. So, from the words of Trevor, I wasn't taught how to be hungry, but I was taught how to eat. I wasn't taught how to speak, but I was taught what to say. I wasn't taught how to be born, but I was taught how to live. So in the churning of this, what am I before conditioning? And I love this. It's such a beautiful reflection. That churning of getting to the source of who I am is the real work of what a yogi is. And we've got to churn it for ourselves. Like Swamiji says, I'm giving you the food of knowledge, but you have to eat it. And this is the real crux of yoga. It has nothing to do with the asanas, with the physical practice. Like Stu, I'm going to share a little bit of Stu. And as if you've heard him speak, this is something that comes up again and again, but like really churning. And our lives can look like infinite number of ways, but that churning, that innate desire for freedom, the mumukshutva, that's what the sadhana is. So here we go. The first topic that I wanted to address, and I tried to kind of thread these together in how I'm presenting them, but is the topic of practice, of abhyasa. And when we think of abhyasa, we think of vairagya, non-attachment. And as it's been come up again and again, when we think of vairagya, we think of vivek, discernment. So these teachings of abhyasa, vivek, vairagya have come to the forefront of my own practice many times this year. And in fact, it is the study of a lifetime of my dear friend and previous guest from season 1, Alisa Shakti Priya. So we continually return to this because it's timeless. Stu talked about it, Lars talked about it, Prasad talked about it, and Daniel also relates abhyasa and vairagya as it's written in the Yoga Sutras with his own reflections. So here is a clip where Daniel reiterates the importance of continually practicing vairagya and letting go. And just the importance of if we attach ourselves even to those practices that make us feel good or comfortable, they can ultimately just bring us more bondage. So how to just apply that into our regular life. So here's Daniel on letting go.
So, in the end, we are just, rearranging bits of, organic matter. And, in the grand scheme of things, we don't matter that much. But life is unfolding, and that matters. And we're experiencing it, and that can matter too. And we can find meaning in the way that it matters, even though it might not even have any ultimate meaning other than it's just unfolding. But what we do can give it meaning, and having a purpose, I think, is very important. And that's something that we can create through the way we relate to what's unfolding through us. So I guess, yeah, it's very tempting sometimes to think about blissing out and, just need to stay in the zone and just basically get high. Or is it possible to just let go of the need for that even and just be with all of its messy complication and misery-inducing frustratingness? That's I think for me the bigger question now. I used to think, if I did all these practices and just got disciplined enough and moved to a quiet place in the countryside where I currently live, somehow I was just going to get there. I didn't know where there was, but I thought I was close. And honestly, I think I've just got a bit isolated and have come to realize as I get older, actually, I probably don't want to be quite that isolated as much. So I've spent much more time in London in recent years than I used to. And enjoy, being able to come and go from the busyness and the craziness. But I mean, really, the point is to come back to, you know, I suppose in a way the creative tension that Patanjali puts together in the Yoga Sutra. If we really want to align asana practice and everything else that's going on in the yoga world with what Patanjali's saying, he's talking about a balance between abhyasa and vairagya. And that is the nature of what brings the steady mind. And abhyasa is the repeated effort that cultivates one-pointedness, basically, the steadiness and focus. And vairagya is the absence of craving and clinging. And so it's letting go. And so if all we're doing is practicing, we just get more and more attached to practice. The challenge is to be almost renouncing the thing that we're finding helpful and to be able to let go of it. And I think for me, one of the great gifts I've had in recent years is to find that the things I was quite attached to as a practitioner are no longer happening for me, and to try and see how letting go of my attachment to that is just part of the same project that would have to be engaged with even if I was doing them. And that actually not having the opportunity to do them has forced me to develop a more healthy releasing tendency than I might otherwise have had, because I think I had a little bit of yoga junkie approach to my practice, and if I hadn't done it or something got in the way of it, out of my way, please. I need my yoga, and so it's been a very interesting process from that point of view. But vairagya, or as the Gita puts it, tyaga, that's another great word for it, and that's sort of slightly different flavor. It's just releasing. Just letting things pass through, and we've got to let go of this body. So the more practice we get at letting go and allowing things to happen, the more skillful we'll get. But obviously, that doesn't mean we just let everything happen and have no personal boundaries and tolerate abuse or stand by while terrible things are done in front of our faces. No, but the more attached we are to things being a particular way, the harder it's going to be to let go enough to roll with the punches on the ropes, to use a boxing metaphor, and not be knocked down. Instead, to still be there standing. Okay. Stuff's got real. What am I going to do? And that's life.
Renouncing the thing that we find helpful. That is a power. So interesting how often letting go or surrender can be perceived as something passive, something feminine, but actually it is such a power to be able to let go of that which we're ultimately most attached to. Daniel's episode was titled as the same as his book, The Truth of Yoga. And well, first of all, I really recommend his book. It's super good. But this, I think, is essential for all of us as yoga practitioners, and especially those of us who are teaching or sharing yoga, to remember the truth of yoga. Are we actually living and teaching to the best of our ability that truthfulness, that authenticity of yoga without all the fluff put on top? I think it's so important. And as you probably know, Stu is someone in my life who is consistently repeating what yoga is not, which is that yoga fitness, that kind of new agey, foo-foo yoga, which I guess it's fine, it has its place, but if we're going to actually be doing a service and not just appropriating yoga, then we really have to continually to know and to share what it is that we're appropriating and speak to that, and what we're respecting. So to understand where yoga comes from, its nuanced, complicated, contextual, and broad history, without going to do a PhD like Stu and like Daniel and like Dr. Raghunathan, You know, how can we still have the responsibility of being true, being respectful to yoga to the best that we can, you know, and not getting stuck on it also. And in the words of Stu, this is what will save modern yoga. So here's Stu.
There's quite a lot there, but there's two things. There's two things. One is when you are in the West and you're teaching, and people will come to, I dread to think how many people and what percentage of it is, but I think a sort of large percentage of people will come to yoga classes in the West and say, sod all that shit, I don't want to listen to that crap, I just want to do exercises. And that unfortunately is becoming more and more and more. Like people don't want to go to a studio where they have to chant and they do meditation and they do pranayama and they do mantra. They don't want to do that. They just want to do the asana. They want to do a handstand. They want to do twists. They want to do bends. They want to get their body in they want to get their bum tight. They want to get their belly tight. So the first thing where there is a huge dysfunction is that idea in the West that yoga is this. Yoga is keep fit. Yoga is wellness. Yoga has been commodified and it's been monetized so much in the last 25, 30 years. It's become this $1 trillion business, and the same as mindfulness and the same as other Eastern practices, Buddhist practices, Hindu practices. They've been monetized and commodified beyond recognition. And people will not really be interested in what you and I may think of as real yoga. They may think it's for the weird and wonderful, the people who wear mala, the people who chant mantra every morning, the people who have a little shrine at home and light their candle and pray and do meditation. They're not really interested in that. I'd say more and more people are becoming like that. And that's the first thing, before you even get to the dichotomy between modern Hinduism, what Hinduism really is, and its secularity within the Indian state, which is a secular state, supposedly. If Hindu Rashtra has its way, it won't be a secular state, it'll be a Hindu state. But you have that, you have all these basic capitalization, like the capitalization, the way it's been made into a capitalist enterprise in the West is one thing that absolutely fuels Hindu nationalism here. They're like, you've taken 1/6 of our whole darshan, 1/6 of our whole Indian philosophy, and you've made it into a business, and you culturally appropriate everything. Everything we have, you've taken from us and monetized it. And Indians monetize it as well, we know that, but like in the West generally, I do it, everybody does it. I do it, I'm totally cynical about it. I run yoga classes, chakra classes, I do philosophy classes, and I make money out of it, I make a living out of it, and I commodify it. But I try to give something back. I don't just blatantly steal. It's like there's a really good classification of types of cultural appropriation you can have, and I'm probably not there at the higher echelon yet. But once I've got a grasp of maybe a bit more culturally aware with the Hindu language and Hindu culture and the Sanskrit and the traditions of yoga, even more than I have now, I'm probably somewhere in the upper middle tier, but I'm not down at the bottom, which is totally cultural appropriation, the same way mindfulness meditation in the military or within corporations is exploitation of Buddhist mindfulness and the cultural appropriation of it. I think there's a huge scope of change that's going to come about, because people will realize that keep fit, yoga as a keep fit exercise will become yoga like karate, or yoga like step exercises, or yoga like parkour, or yoga like cycles, whatever they call, the bike ones. And it won't last forever. If you're not interested in going on a little bit further with yoga, you'll just go and do something else. But the people who are interested in it more, they'll start to chant, and they'll start to wonder about what books to read, and they'll start to want to go to India. And when they do come to India, they'll start to realize what Shashi Tharoor talks about is that you can come and you can be part of our Hindu Sangh, our Hindu family, but you can still be a Muslim, you can still be a Christian, you can still be a socialist, you can still be an atheist. You don't have to give up your religion to come to the yoga family. the yoga family's universal. Nobody's excluded, and that's something really important.
Yoga family. I love what Stu says here, really reminding us to get back to the original teachings of yoga as one of 6 philosophical systems, or philosophical systems in India, and really honoring and respecting that these teachings come from South Asia, from cultures that are separate than ours. And he says here, and he says again and again, how, we can be atheist, we can be fascist. No, we can be atheist, we can be anarchist. That was the word I was looking for. We can be Muslim, we can be Christian, we can be Buddhism, we can be Jewish, we can be anything if we actually get to the heart, to the essence of that Santana Dharma, that eternal truth, which is that eternal oneness. So I love Stu's teaching, and I love Stu's integrity and authenticity in the way that he teaches yoga, as many of you know. So if you haven't checked out that episode, or Stu's episode from season 2, go and do it. And another shout out, if you're ever looking for a killer yogasana practice that has these threads and nuggets of wisdom woven throughout, you can practice with Stu online from anywhere. So I highly suggest it. And this brings me now to an essential point of contemplation in our woke society of disruptors and change makers alongside the spiritual bypassers. This is a polarized time. I feel it's such a polarized time to be a yogi, or a person for that matter, that is attracted and drawn to a sense of harmony, not only within, but also on the level of the world, that seeks and desires peace and justice and fairness. And this is something I've reconciled within my own life, how to make a stand for what is good and fair while making efforts for oneness, which transcends right and wrong, just like Rumi says in his poem, "Out there beyond the field of right and wrong, I'll meet you there." We're making aims to get into that field, and yet we still exist. And this is a topic that has come up again and again. Even Prasad had mentioned it. He said that, we are co-creators with this environment. We'll never not be affected by the world. But how do we reconcile that getting affected, making a stand, while making the ultimate stand for truth, for oneness, for our ultimate reality? So it's a constant point of reflection for me, as it should be, I think. And I don't think we can nor should find it easy or comfortable to face the horrors of the world while practicing the universality and source of all beings. So to start off this point, sharing a clip from Sheena. And this conversation touched me so deeply. And she really says, it was uncomfortable also, that yoga is meant for us to face the world, not to escape it.
I think so often we're taught in maybe mainstream yoga spaces that yoga is not political, or that leave the politics behind. Yoga is about oneness. Let's just come together and do this practice. And everyone has breath, and I don't see race, and I don't see these hierarchies is kind of the language that might be used if we're participating in spiritual bypass. And I do believe there's a core humanity to us all, and a core connection that we have as human beings to us all. And I believe that. And at the same time, right, I do believe that everything is and has political implications, right? Which is why either I say yoga is neutral in the sense that yoga can be used for weaponization, or yoga can be used for liberation. Or I say that yoga is inherently contradictory, or like it's been weaponized, right? It was weaponized by Brahmins, the most upper caste, against lower caste people historically. And I think I'm not sure if I'm doing justice to this question, but I think, when we do spiritual bypass, it's when we try to leave the politics behind because we think we can't reconcile it. And I think that the way around that for me is to actually sit with the contradictions and to sit with the political reality. Sometimes my yoga is going to a protest and expressing my anger at this unjust system, right? Sometimes my yoga is taking breaths with community, and sometimes it's seeking refuge in, my home practice. And I think when we can use our yoga to actually be in the world and confront suffering in the world, as opposed to escape the suffering of the world.
All right. What an inspiring woman. What a powerful, powerful talk that was. So next up, because I do want to reiterate this spiritual bypass point, and I think I want to reiterate it because it's something that I really have considered a lot this year, and I think it's relative to the state of the world. So Acharya Shunya is another powerful female guest from this season who wrote a whole chapter in her book, The Sovereign Self, another book I highly recommend, about bypass and oneness. And she really brings our attention to the two planes that we must exist on as sadhaks. Just like I previously said, that we have to take care of this individual mechanism. We have to take care of our close-knit relations, family, friends, and on a broader scale, we have responsibilities as citizens of this world, of caretakers of this planet, of advocates for the oppressed, especially, like Sheena says, the ones in a position of privilege, recognizing our positionality. But Acharya Shunya, she really brings it into the more esoteric point of having this view and taking care of the individual me. So here's Shunya on that point.
So bypassing happens when we become only this or that. We do not have to be only believing in oneness and letting that direct our behavior. I think oneness has to direct our consciousness, but our behavior moment to moment has to be adaptive yet authentic, because it has to answer to that oneness one day, right? And so it has to be both at the same time. And this prevents bypassing. The man I divorced and the man I married, they are both that absolute Shakti, that absolute truth, cloaked in different clothes, body clothes. So if I was filled with hatred for the one I let go and only infatuated adoration for the one I am with, then I am a fool. That same Shakti is playing a different Leela, a different theater. And through one, it gives me positive strokes, and through the other, negative. I have to respond appropriately as per worldly laws and worldly ways, but yet in the heart of my hearts, we are all one. So this is the deeper work, and probably I have come to it in a very comfortable way over the last 1.5 decade or so, being in both planes.
All right, I'm having so much fun with this. So while we are thinking about reconciling the material world with knowing our indweller, with knowing that witness Sakshi self, I bring you to Magnus's personal experience of reaching Anandamaya Kosha, the bliss body. And just thinking about how whether we approach our healing, and I would add our mental health as Magnus touches on, or addiction as we touched on in my solo episode or the episode with Richard and Lena, or just the general disillusionment with the world, that from if we approach it from a spiritual view or a worldly view such as science, it doesn't necessarily matter as long as we reach there is what's important. And I think that's something also in the clip just shared from Daniel that he also reflected on. And Lars really talked about it also in his episode, that it's kind of what makes life beautiful and interesting and wonderful, that we can explore the different avenues that speak to us, that the right way is the way that resonates with me, that is seeped in that purity and that oneness and that life-supporting vision. So it's not my path is right and it will destruct and squish everybody. No. It's letting the inspiration dawn from within. I think it was Prasad that said that. And then we know what the next step is. Then we know which path to take. So here is Magnus on his personal experience and beautiful expression about getting there.
One of those occasions when I meditated, I had this very strong experience that I think I really got a glimpse of this Anandamaya Kosha. I felt like I am not the thoughts, I'm not emotions. I might have said to myself that I don't like myself and things like that, but I could feel that, well, that's one layer, but that's not the completely me. So I got this really strong experience. And later on, when I learned more about neuroscience, I felt like maybe this was just that I moved out of what you call the default mode network in the brain. That's a network of the brain that is self-referential. It's also called the daydreaming network. But what they have shown in research is that the daydreaming network is very often about negative tasks. Once upon a time in history, it was really useful because we had to think over and over again our place in the hierarchy, and do we have something to bring to the group, or maybe they will take you out if you not have something to bring. So this was really important. Still is very important for creativity and such, but we know that it goes to the negative. And I think a friend of mine who is doing a lot of research on the brain, she told me that you might have been like in a ditch in default mode network where you're looping, ruminating thoughts all the time. Very common for ADHD people. And meditation helped me to switch this network off, because when you focus very strongly on one thing, like I did in the meditation, you move over to other networks in the brain, like a salient network and other executive networks. And they are anti-correlating, they can't be on at the same time. So I think when that was switching off, I felt this, wow, I'm free from this rumination. So it's like two explanations. One is that I got the glimpse of Anandamaya Kosha, and the other one is just very neuroscientifically that I came out of this daydreaming state, ruminative state.
However we get there. But let's remember, there are no hacks. There are no yoga hacks, no hacks to refining the mind, as the episode title with Prasad was. And here I've got 2 clips of both Mayank and Prasad, 2 devoted meditators with 2 extremely different stories and different lives, but arriving at the same point of recognizing the patience, the long game, the slow permeating power of living a spiritual life. And this topic was brought up again and again and again, that it is a slow burn. So if you're looking for a quick fix, this is not it. I don't know what is, but this is not it. So I just love remembering this point because it kind of gives grace to each and every one of us. Like, girl, you are doing great. So just keep trucking along. Sometimes it's going to feel amazing. Sometimes it's going to feel like stuck in the mud. And that's a part of it also. So take inspiration from these 2 masters. I'm just going to drop them one after the other, Prasad and Mayank.
What I want to specifically mention here is there's immense need to be patient with our own journey. And that's why real spiritual development will happen only when you stop looking at it as a project. That's what I believe. Okay, I have no scriptural citation for this, but I believe that when you stop looking at spirituality as one more project to fuel one's ego, it finds its own pace. Natural, effortless growth happens. But if you look at, no, I want to be self-realized in 7 years, it's like I want to be a vice president of an organization in 5 years, like a corporate ladder kind of thing, it will not happen. There is a tremendous importance of ease, effortlessness, joy, lightness in spirituality, which usually gets missed because most spiritual enthusiasts look at spirituality as one more project, one more feather in the cap, one more variable to mollycoddle their ego. Once your spirituality becomes as natural, as effortless, as organic as breathing, existing, bathing, living, eating, then you will not say, I am spiritual or I practice spirituality. Never.
That's never all going to be shanti, man. It just doesn't go like that. But are you at peace underneath that? I think that's often the thing, that we think that our peaceful state should look like something, or it should feel like something. And it's way deeper than that. That's how I've come to see it. And you're right. It's a slow maturing. There's no shortcut to that maturing. And that's why it's you have to play the long game with your spiritual practice, because it's not just something you choose even for 10 years. It's something that has to become deeply part of your commitment to your life for a lifetime. And all of this stuff is going to come through that lifetime. We all have to go through what we have to go through, but can we go through with a spiritual perspective? Can we go through with a perspective of self that underlies all of the turbulence that can happen for the human being, for the human waking state? And what happens is that you start to see that you really are just living a waking state that is kind of imposed on top of who you really are. It's like the analogy of the movie on the screen. You're the screen. You're always the canvas. You're always the underlying canvas or screen of your life. You're the constant. And that constant is at peace. There is always Shant there. And the more you can build a relationship with that, the less the colors and the characters on the screen affect your, or you are less reliant on them for your state of peace and well-being. You start to realize that any movie can come on the screen and you will be able to maintain an equanimity through that.
It's not all shanti shanti, man. People, folks. I love Mayank's expression. And just even the title of his episode, Life with the Perspective of the Self. To know that even when those waves come and crash and we feel like we're drowning, it's all the self. I just love that. It's like just having that recognition in those difficult times is such a kind of superpower to manage life in that way. So I love that. Moving on, we must pull this thread back to the purpose and goal of this podcast, which is our sadhana, both individually and collectively. Our sadhana is why we're both here. It's why I am, for sure. But I loved this satsang with Lars, where he solidified the importance, the goal, and the freedom of sadhana. So here is Lars on sadhana, and I think it sums it all up perfectly for us.
I mean, what we have to try to create that space ourselves. And he gave so much advice about that also. Like he said, he acknowledged money, it's important, you know. He said money is the feet of Lakshmi. They're kind of holy. And they can buy you freedom to do sadhana. So you shouldn't sort of like deny the power of money. He said, you know, like whatever you have to do to earn money, do it. And then he said, otherwise, build a meditation room and sit in it, unless you have to go and make money. He wrote that to me in a letter when I was 18. And that's still such a perfect piece of advice. So yeah, that's what I still have to scramble, you know, to get money for this and that. It's like, and as long as we have a body, as long as we are in this material world, we have to do something. And we just do it. But we know that even though our body, mind is dependent upon the world, the self is free. Mm-hmm. And that's like the point of knowledge here, that actually we are free, whatever we do. And that is the sadhya of sadhana. The goal of sadhana is to know that there is actually a state which you are right now, in which you're not dependent on anything that happens in the gunas.
All right, so before we go out with a bang, I want to just touch point on one reoccurring theme or topic that I actually didn't pull any sound bites on. And that is the importance of a teacher, of a guru, of a wise person in our lives. And I didn't bring any sound bites out because I feel that it's a constant thread throughout not only this season, but through all the seasons of A Curious Yogi. And obviously, if you've been listening, if you've been here for a while, you know how important my own teacher has been in my life and my practice, and that many of these guests, we share the same guru, Swami Sham. So, I just felt that the point has been brought home many times, and the main point being that Satguru, that indweller, that teacher within, that dispeller of darkness, the wise one, we know it lives inside. We know that these teachings, whichever guru's mouth they come through, it's all illuminating us. So I think in a few of these episodes, especially with those friends who I've known through the ashram, particularly Alka, who is the daughter of Swamiji, her introduction and definition throughout her whole podcast episode was the perfect way for us to understand who a guru is, who our teacher is. So I invite you to go back and listen to that episode with Elka. And yeah, that's all I have to say on that point. And I'd like to finish with a bang. We had to go out with a bang. And if you've been listening up until now, I bet you can guess who I'm going to finish with. That's right, Shaarda ji. All the Curious Yogis on the Patreon and in the satsang group undoubtedly loved the episode with Shaarda, and maybe she didn't reach as many downloads or shares on social media or things like that because she doesn't have social media. She doesn't have Instagram. She doesn't have Facebook. She barely, that's not who she is. So people don't know who she is, but I do. She is like boss. She has been living and studying this since she was like 14. She has a PhD in Vedic studies. Like, she has devoted her whole life to unfolding this, and she's reached a point where the way she expresses, the way she lives and laughs and delights in the teachings is so infectious and contagious. So definitely gonna have her back next season as per requested. But this clip I'm going to share is her sharing her own delightful story about, which I think is essential, learning to relax into sadhana, and ultimately how you're on your own, but keep relaxed. And I think it's so important because sometimes we can get really fixated on our ideas of what a sadhak is, or what a spiritual person is, or what a yogi is, or what a yoga teacher is. All these constraints and confines, like, Shaarda is like, be free, don't believe any of that. And at the end, she says, and then your life will be wonderful and funny and fun. And I love that. So here is Shaarda on how to relax into sadhana.
And you laugh at yourself. We take ourselves so seriously, and everything's so important and so seriously. Swamiji is always laughing and making everybody laugh. Mm-hmm. You know, he when line comes to mind, he said, the person who treats reality as a joke is liberated, and the person who treats a joke as a reality leaves the room.
Yeah, but I guess it is work.
It's a total work, and it's the only worthwhile work.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like you have to quit all your other works, but you have to make this at the center of your life. And it's just like anything you want to be, anything in life you want to do, an academic degree or get a profession or get the person you're in love with or whatever it is that you want, that pet, whatever it is you want. You put your attention, you put your energy, it'll happen for you. It's what you desire. Mm-hmm. What you really want. Swamiji used to say to me a lot, what do you want?
And what was your answer?
Well, my interesting thing was my mind would say, I want this and this and this, Mm-hmm. But out of my mouth I'd always say, I want complete and utter freedom. I want vision of oneness. I want self-realization. And my mind would say, I want to be healthy. I wish I had more money. Whatever its desires were at the time. So you have to really want to be free. That's why they say in the scriptures that the desire for liberation is the most important. Mm-hmm. But in a chilled way. I'm going to tell you one cute story. How are we doing for time?
Good.
There's a cute story about me. So I came here when I was 22, and one day there was satsang outside, and I decided, I thought, because I'd studied at university about the Buddha, and he had sat under the Bodhi tree until he got enlightened. And he just meditated under this tree for I don't know how many weeks or months, and didn't eat, didn't drink, he got liberated. So I thought, if the Buddha can do it, I'm as good as the Buddha. I was a very arrogant kid, I really thought I was really incredible gift to humankind until I started to come to know my personality and all its flaws. But anyways, I was confident, which is important to have faith in yourself, and that I had. So I decided, okay, Buddha can do it, I'll do it too. So I sat under this tree. It was in the summer, and I had a little cotton shawl, and I sat under the tree, and it was freezing, you know. It was like something like 3 a.m. I was like hungry because I'd been there since like 2 p.m, and I was tired and I was miserable, and I'm thinking I'm going to do it like Buddha did, I'm going to do it. So at one point I got up and started to walk down to use the bathroom, and it was a beautiful full moon night, and all of a sudden Swamiji was standing outside. I thought, what's he doing here? You know, I was probably disturbing him. He was somewhere else. Well, there's this kid's like going crazy over there, you know. So he came out and I said, Swamiji, what are you doing here? And he said, question is, what are you doing here? So I told him, I'm here because I'm going to meditate till I realize. And I said, I have great mumukshutva. I have great desire for liberation. And he said, mumukshutva means just relax and know you exist. Now go home and sleep and get warm. He started laughing and sent me away. And I went home. And like, it doesn't mean that intensity, you know, I'm going to realize, you know, how much meditation did I do today, and you know, how many scriptures did I read, and how many hours of satsang. It's just to know your existence as pure fee forever, as the knower.
Mm-hmm. That's a beautiful story, and I feel like that's something that attracted me to Swamiji and this kind of way of life and to sadhana is the priority on the freedom, the priority to just be free and add meditation, and like, because I had these kind of concepts of what it meant to be spiritual, or kind of like somehow, I guess because probably I grew up in a religious Christian, not overly religious, but a Christian background where I associated spirituality with religion and rules, and it kind of I was like always like wanting to be free, and so for most of my life until I met Swamiji, I expressed freedom on the relative field.
Sure.
As wild as I could have possibly
I was the
got.
same.
And not only did it not make me free, it made me suffer way more, but to actually have that experience of the realized being and the one who's living the knowledge, and it's so clear, for me it was anyways, but to just know, like, actually freedom is everything. And he would just say, like, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 7 minutes, just add meditation.
Yes.
And like how beautifully he said to you, just relax. and you take care of the system and you do the things, and I just find that so attractive and so kind of freeing in itself.
Yes.
Just to know I don't have to be anything other than what I am.
Yes, beautiful.
Like,
so true.
Because the whole life, from the time we're little, we're just trying to be something else. We're trying to be smart. We're trying to get the job. We're trying to get the friends. We're always trying out. Yes. And then to have that sort of permission or the recognition,
beautiful,
that just
beautiful, Bobbi.
Freedom is it.
Yeah.
And you're already that.
You're already that. Yeah.
It's kind of like like you said before, it's just like
you can relax.
You can relax. And it does make it joyful.
Yeah.
And then, like, Nandi and I had this conversation, we actually on the podcast, also about, like, this idea of discipline, and you know, we have to take care of the body, and we have to do these things, but when we start from freedom, those habits or lifestyle requirements, they kind of happen more naturally and organically from the space.
Beautiful.
Rather than
from
forcing.
Outside. Yeah. From inside, that's the thing. It's like Swamiji never gave us rules and regulations. He never said you had to do this and have to do that. He always said freedom never begins with bondage. And it's like, even a rule, like every moment is totally fresh and different. Like if you're in a situation, house is on fire, what do you do? You know, it's any kind of a situation comes up, there's no thing, you're not going to pull out your manual and your spiritual book and or sit there and do bhajan or something like that. You know, you're gonna, your own awareness, your own intelligence will know in the moment what to do. So you can't, the rules are not going to help you. What is going to help you is your own intelligence. The knower is supremely intelligent and knows everything. knows everything. Everything else that you learn is just a bunch of words, a bunch of ideas. What's genuine from your being, your own, like if somebody gets saved in a car accident, it's not like he's planning turn the wheel right and then he's moving, he's saving, he's doing, he's speaking what's needed, rather than with a plan and an agenda and a discipline and a formula. It has to be from the heart, from the being. That's going to be your freedom. And it's such having the imposition of all these, Swamiji also would say, like, it's never a belief, it's your experience. If you're just believing in something, it's just with your mind. It has to be what you have known for yourself, then it's going to work for you. And so this is our laboratory, this is the experiment. Our life is our experiment. And there's nobody who can do it for you. Nobody can do your sadhana. You're on your own. You're on your own. And it's the most fabulous, wonderful journey. It's just fantastic, and it's very fun and funny. And we're great characters in this great drama that's been created in the world.
You're on your own, Curious Yogi. And as Shivnath taught us in season 1, it's an independent work and we can't do it alone. So I love what Shaarda said, that, ultimately you're the one that does the work. And that was repeated again and again and again in the season as well. But we need each other. To do this on our own is already going against the status quo, blinders off, no thanks. And not a lot of people are putting the blinders off. Many happy with the blinders on, but not me, not this Curious Yogi. I need satsang and I need community, and I'm sure you need that sense of belonging as well. That's why you're here. But this, my friend, is a space of belonging to our own highest nature. So there are countless clips and moments of utter clarity I could endlessly share with you, but I hope this little wrap up leaves you with enough inspiration to go back and revisit your favorite episodes and return for next season. I'm so excited. I've got so many great ideas and great guests lined up. And I just want to thank you, the listener, for the inspiration, your participation, your presence. I'm so excited when I go and look at the analytics of the downloads and all the people from all over the world joining the podcast, joining the satsang. Few people from around the world that are joining me in India for the retreat. Just because of this podcast, it has created such a sense of community, and I've loved creating the container to have these illuminating conversations and just share my own reflections. So thank you. And thank you for supporting me in that. I'll be back in a few months with more of a Curious Yogi, more satsang, more learnings for all of us. So deepest gratitude to all my guests and to each and every one of you. I really hope you come back. And in the meantime, drop me your emails. Let me know what you think. Please remember to leave a review. And share these episodes. It helps to reach the show to reach more people. And I also find it brings me something to share. So I'm sure if you share one of these episodes with someone that you love or that might take some value, it'll feel good. So, Amaram Hum, Madaram Hum. That's it. That's all. Jai Ho, Jai Ho. Take care of yourselves, everyone. Take care of each other. And see you next time.